Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. For all of you new and old subscribers, thanks for being here. I had no idea that so many of you were going to subscribe to my channel. If you don't know why I started this channel, it was a way for me to study while I was preparing for my NBCOT, and I would record it in order to help me learn it because I would be teaching myself. So I shared it with the world and here I am. So thanks for enjoying my videos. Thanks for the comments and questions. I'm sorry I don't immediately get back to people or sometimes don't. I have been very busy and I just don't get to check the channel very often. I will try my best to get back to general comments and questions, but I am not taking recommendations for future NBCOT videos right now, but feel free to leave them in the comments. I just haven't posted any of those lately because I haven't been studying for it, so that is why. So recently I went through the whole process of looking for a new job as a new grad, and I really wanted to share that experience now that I can reflect back on it and look at the whole process from a hindsight perspective, I should say. Before I get this video started, the pictures that are featured on this video are not mine. They are nature photos as usual if you are used to some of my other videos. These pictures are specifically of Horseshoe Bend in Page, Arizona. It is literally one of the most beautiful sights I have ever seen. So I wanted to share some pictures from there that I found on Google. So hope you enjoy that. So I'm going to start off with a question that I get the most from people, which is how long did the job hunt take and how did you approach it? Everyone's going to have different circumstances and resources while they are on the job hunt, so it's going to look different for everyone. This is just my perspective and my experience. So once I was done with my level 2, I studied for my boards and I passed, and there's another video about that whole process if you'd like to hear about it, and I'll link it below. But after I passed my boards, I started looking for jobs immediately after. I decided not to look for jobs while I was studying because I felt that that was not conducive for my learning style, and I just wanted to focus on one thing at a time. But there are other people who are different from me and who were able to multitask those two things and look for a job while studying. In some cases, you might come out of level 2 with the opportunity to um, join the company or wherever you are working for if they have an opening and you're a right fit for them. So sometimes that opportunity pans out as well. So that's also, I guess, something to be mindful of if you're still in school and just looking into your future ahead of time, that your final level 2 or even your first level 2 may be an opportunity for your first job. Definitely keep in touch with all of your supervisors and everyone that you meet because those connections and networks can take you a very long way. With that being said, I started looking at different search engines such as Indeed and LinkedIn. I created a profile and made my resume accessible, also updated my resume to be up to par for a new grad's, resume. A few key pointers for your resume would be at max 2 pages. Make sure that you really write all the major things that you accomplished and were responsible for in every fieldwork setting that you were in. Level 2 can be up to 10 bullets, but I would keep it as brief and straightforward as possible. And level 1 is probably going to be a couple of bullets since you have less responsibilities in those settings. Also, make sure that you have your NBCOT number and state license number available on it as well. I feel like most people look for jobs online nowadays, and that's primarily what I and most of my friends that I've spoken to had the most success with. The search engine that I used the most was actually Google. I had no idea that Google was a really comprehensive job search engine, but it is. So all you have to do is type in occupational therapy, the state that you live in or the city, and what it does is it combines all the different jobs that are available from different job sites, and it streamlines it for you into a really organized and structured list. And there are little things like you can, star it or flag it if you're interested in it, or organize it by certain, I guess, tags or filters. So I found that tool to be really useful. But with that being said, don't limit yourself to just one search engine. I highly recommend that you do at least two or three. I know it gets very tiring, but go ahead and make an Excel spreadsheet and make a simple, system for you to know which places that you've applied for. Especially if you're applying for many different sites, it can get very confusing to remember where you applied and who contacted you back and what didn't or did pan out. So try to be organized from the get-go so that this process is as easy as possible. So once you apply to a job, you may hear back within an hour. I know that sounds really fast, but depending on the company and how their recruiting system works, they might have a very big staff that will get back to you immediately, especially if it's through a recruiting company, or you may hear back 2 or 3 weeks later if they're a small company. So don't be discouraged if you don't get contacted right away, because sometimes the process takes longer for the recruiters to filter through your application, and then it gets sent over to another person or even a third person. So there's a process to it, and you shouldn't be discouraged if you don't hear back right away. And if you don't hear back at all, don't be discouraged, because people don't always get back to you to say, hey, we're looking for someone who's more experienced, or hey, we found someone else already. They don't always tell you that kind of stuff. So don't be discouraged. Keep your head up and just keep applying to places that you feel are a good fit for you. Which brings me to my next question of what kind of settings did I apply to? Depending on what you're interested in, this is going to vary a lot. I was interested in assisted living as well as more older adult outpatient settings. I had a great experience with the geriatric population and in an outpatient setting for my level 2, and I was very much drawn to working with the older adults. But at the same time, I had a very positive experience with my pediatric level 2, as well as a background in psychology and childcare experience. So I was very comfortable with the idea of working with children as well. At the time when I was looking for jobs, most of the openings were actually for skilled nursing facilities as well as home health, and that wasn't really the perfect fit for me, but I kept my options open because I feel like the first job is really just a learning experience, and it's all about figuring out what you do prefer and what you don't like in a job setting, and the only way you're going to learn that is by obviously trying it out. If you have a very specific setting that you're interested in, such as hands or maybe, a rehab setting in a hospital, I think that's great. There's nothing wrong with having a very, set mindset on what you are interested in. But if you're more like me and you're a little bit more open-minded to different ideas and different settings, I highly recommend that you apply to different ones and just go through the interview process to see what you can learn about the company and if it's a good fit for you. I think more importantly, the level of comfort really comes into play. Do you feel like you have people you can ask questions to? Is there a training process? Is there some kind of structured mentorship? I think those are more important questions to ask yourself rather than simply, is the setting right for me? So consider it from a holistic perspective, which I'm sure you all will since you are OTs, and holistic is literally a part of, I feel like, our profession's definition. Wherever you decide to apply to, of course, try to read up on their website or see what they're offering based on the information you find online about the job and about the company. I wouldn't take the ratings and things that you find about other people's work experience to heart, just because a lot of the things that you'll find on sites like Career Builder or Indeed are from all job positions within the company. So a lot of them may not pertain to you as an OT and would be experiences of maybe someone in human resources or in accounting or in settings that aren't applicable to your own. So don't read into that so much. Really take it at face value. Go ahead and apply to the job if you are okay with the setting, and really pose a lot of questions about what the day-to-day life is going to be like for you there, and the population that you would be working with. Productivity level is very important. Of course, the mentorship, anything that you're curious about, go ahead and ask. Usually you don't discuss money or any form of like reimbursement, CEUs, that kind of stuff doesn't usually come up in the first interview unless they bring it up first. I would save any kind of negotiation, money talk, anything like that for the follow up interview or later down the line, especially if they bring it up first, because the first interview is really about getting to know you and getting to know if this company seems like it'll be a good fit for me. So, really ask all the questions that you have and don't feel bad about asking questions. I think that the more you ask, the more you have a better idea of if that setting is going to be right for you. So don't hold back on that and go ahead, because I don't know any employer who wouldn't want to answer questions about their company and the job that they're offering you. So, how long did it take to find a job? This is a very variable answer for everyone that you will ask, just because it depends on the job market, when you graduated, when you started to look for jobs, all of the above come into play. Of course, your personal circumstances, your financial circumstances will all weigh in on that, as well as the settings that you're interested in and how, specific those settings may be. For me, I feel like I had a pretty open-ended process to looking at different job settings, and I think that helped me a lot because I was able to apply to pediatric sites, to hospitals, home health, like everywhere. So I had more opportunities, but I also was licensed right before the holidays hit, like Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I didn't really job hunt during that process because a lot less jobs were available during that window of time. So I really hit the ground running starting from after New Year's into, mid January. And it took me about 2 months to find a job if I count it that way. So it really depends on the situation. I don't think that there is an ideal or, set number for how long it will take you. It just ranges depending on everything. But again, don't get discouraged if it takes longer than you would like, and don't rush the process. I think it's really important that you find a setting where you can learn and grow and take what you've learned and either stay there or go somewhere else, but don't rush into it. Of course, I know there are different financial circumstances, but oftentimes I feel like that leads to having a really poor work life balance. And later down the line, I think it's just more transition and time that you would have to invest in figuring out where you want to be and where you can, grow. So really take the time and realize that good things take time. And don't get frustrated. Don't compare yourself to your other classmates or other people that you know who have been in a similar situation, because everyone's journey is going to be different, and there's no reason for you to rush this process because it's a really big decision and it's going to take time. This video is getting really long, so this is going to be the last question that I cover. And I feel like the interview process can actually be a separate video in itself, but I'm just going to cover a few things that really stood out to me. The interview process is going to look different depending on where you apply. A lot of recruiting companies and recruiters will call you and really ask you a lot of detailed questions about what you're looking for. and even how much money you would like to make. And that's because they're trying to find jobs that match up with what you're looking for and hopefully, provide that service to you by, finding you a job in the process. Also, don't rely on a recruiter to find you a job because there are some that will contact you back with all sorts of options and job, descriptions, and others may not get back to you at all. And that just depends on what kind of jobs are available and the right fit between, the availability and the job that you're looking for. So again, don't rely on them and also don't be discouraged if they don't get back to you. Also, don't rely on a recruiter to find you a job because there are some that will contact you back with all sorts of options and job, descriptions, and others may not get back to you at all. And that just depends on what kind of jobs are available and the right fit between, the availability and the job that you're looking for. So again, don't rely on them and also don't be discouraged if they don't get back to you. As for my interviews, most of them were two-part interviews. If they were a smaller company and the director also, works there or deals with the hiring process, they usually called me and almost screened me for a brief interview over the phone, kind of asked me to tell them about myself and almost run down, different parts of my resume and my experiences. Speak highly of your fieldwork experiences, especially if you do not have any related medical clinical experiences from your, former positions, because this is really all that a new grad is working off of is your clinical experience. But also don't undermine yourself and think that, you're so inexperienced and you don't have anything to offer because you're coming out as a new grad, which means that you have all of the new knowledge and, research experience as well as very recent up to date clinical experience in a variety of different settings. So don't, sell yourself short just because of you're a new grad. You have lots to offer, and honestly, a lot of companies may be looking for someone who's more seasoned, but that's not necessarily because they're not open to new grads. It's likely because they either are in need of someone to fill in a position very quickly or don't have someone who can, mentor or train a new grad. So again, don't be discouraged if people are like, oh, sorry, we're looking for someone more experienced. But with that being said, do not skip over a job application just because they say we want someone who is, 2+ years of experience. Apply to anything and everything that sounds like a good fit for you and completely ignore that number because some places will contact you back depending on their circumstances. And if they talk to you and feel that you're a good fit, then they might hire you and take the time to train you. So don't ever overlook that. The setting that I'm working in right now was the same situation where they were looking for 3 to 5 year experience, and I had none technically. But we spoke on the phone, and I went in for a second interview, and they hired me. So it can happen, and it can happen to you. So very exciting stuff. Ignore the experience years, and if they don't get back to you or say that, hey, we're looking for someone more experienced, that's okay. So be it. But at least you gave it a shot, and you know for sure. So for the screening phone call process, I would have a printout of the resume on hand and also just highlight a few major things if you feel like you're a nervous interviewer or you might forget what you want to say. Another thing you can do is just write like bullet points on a sheet of paper of, some of your strongest assets, some of your, favorite experiences at these fieldwork settings. How you deal with confrontation comes up a lot. How you do as a team player will come up. Those are kind of general and generic questions about, in the interviewing process, but really acclimate yourself and get comfortable talking about different experiences. They might ask you for a specific experience of a time when, maybe you had a disagreement with a coworker or a PT or something like that. And if you didn't have an experience like that, still kind of familiarize yourself with the wording of how you would approach answering these questions. And as silly as it may seem, go ahead and talk to someone out loud about it, or talk to yourself, like by yourself out loud, to practice these scenarios. You may not need that if you feel comfortable talking on the spot, but if you feel like you're one of those people who need a little bit more prep time, then I highly recommend that you do that and work out kind of like a bulleted list of things to consider, to write down, etc. Other things that you should highlight in the interview are your clinical experience, of course, but also how quickly you became independent. So, most of us follow the 3-month fieldwork level 2 plan, and halfway you're supposed to be independent in carrying, your caseload or some of your caseload. In some cases, you may have gotten more independence earlier on or more responsibility depending on the setting. And if you had opportunities like that, talk about them and say that, you're a fast learner and that you were able to carry a caseload like this and your day looked like this, and, that you deal well with flexibility, or, all of those are really great assets to include, especially because those are really strong strengths to have in any job setting, especially as an OT. So really pitch yourself and use those clinical experiences. If you had any experience with modalities or, any specific types of testing, assessments, those are all things that you can list as something that you are familiar with. Even if you don't know how to do it completely, you can say, I have experience with this, I'm familiar with this, those are all things that you've been exposed to and can take you a long way in the interview process. So do share those things, do have them on your resume, and be proud of yourself. On your first real interview, again, it's really about all these questions, all the things I've been covering, and usually no money talk. So at the end, when they ask, do you have any questions? You can ask about productivity. You can ask about, having a tour. I think getting a tour is always a really good idea if they have time to, because you get a really strong sense of what the setting is like and where you're going to be working on a day-to-day basis when you see the rooms. So ask for a tour if you can. Ask all the questions you want. Ask about, how much teamwork or collaboration there is, if that's important to you, or if research or projects, if that's something that's important to you, do they get involved in that? Do they get involved in the community? Whatever is important, ask them, and definitely have at least 1 or 2 generic questions in mind if you have no questions at all, such as mentorship and productivity, because those two are a given that you should ask for sure. This turned into a super long video, so thank you for listening if you listened this far. I think I'm going to have to make a separate video on the post-interview process, negotiations, salaries, things like that, just because this video has gotten very long. Thanks for watching, and I will create a part 2 to this. Stay tuned, and hopefully I will not let you down and wait another month to upload. Have a great week and take care. And of course, good luck!